Welcome to Chandwell. My name's Michael and I'm making an N-scale model out of paper and card of Bradford Cathedral as part of the Bradford 2025 City of Culture celebrations. I've been working on it for over a year and at the moment I'm adding the strips of tiles to what will become the roof of the north wing, which is now almost finished. So in this episode I thought I'd take you back to just at the end of the Big Push series, if you watched that, and show you how I've started to finish off the north wing whilst I add these tiles. So I'm adding the parapet around the top of the north wing, and it's a right pain. You've got to get 2 layers of 1mm card together around this angle here, and it doesn't have to be exact because when the texture wraps around it'll be fine. I've just put the texture on this bit and on the inside along here. As you can see, it's not fully smoothed down yet. I paint the inside of this with just a wash of watercolour. That's because the roof will come down almost right to the edge. So if we go over here, you'll see how I've done it over there. So you just need the merest hint of the roof line underneath those gaps. So what I'm pleased with though is that my measurements have all worked out in the end, so that the top of the wall matches perfectly against the buttress, so it all fits in nicely. If I'd thought about it, I would have cut this buttress further down so that it looked like the old went all the way down to here, but I think once the roof is in place you won't notice that slight problem. For the capping of the parapet, I cut out this little bit here. Now you can probably see that this bit isn't actually cut perfectly straight. It's got a slight inward bend down this line here. It's very slight, but if you look at it against the mat, you can definitely see it's leaning out. So why have I done that? Well, let's take a look and I'll explain. So the nature of this kind of building with card means that things don't go together 100% perpendicular or straight. But for a piece like this, it does have to match almost perfectly because it has to overlap by a consistent amount right round the edges. So what I do is I take a photograph of the piece itself almost as straight on from above as I possibly can, and I include a ruler. So we see here, there's the 15 to 20 centimetres mark. So we know that this is 5 centimetres. Let's draw a box over it in Inkscape and we'll get it as accurate as we possibly can on the ruler. And then we will clip the picture to it. So there's a little bit of ruler that should be 5 centimetres high. So with aspect ratio locked, let's make it 50mm high. And that scaled the ruler to exactly the right shape. We can now release the clip and we know that the rest of the image is the right size. Once I've got that, I just need to simply draw around the walls with a line that's the right thickness. I can change those lines to shapes and then select them all and simply use Inkscape's Shape Builder tool to draw it together into a component that I know is the exact correct shape, size, width and everything else. This can then just be printed out and stuck onto the model. Okay, so with that done, I can then create a piece of the capping, and doing it this way means I'm not doing any awkward joins in the actual pieces of card. I can do it all in one piece. So I fold that over, well I turn that over like that, and then I glue this bit in the middle of it, and then I wrap the edges around. Don't worry about this extra bit here, that is for the bit that goes past the crenellations of the aisle. Okay, so with that in place like that, we can then just cut into the edges like this. And then once that's done, we can fold the pieces around. Okay, so there's the capping bit done. Needs a little bit of just smoothing down a little bit on the edges, and then we should hopefully be able to glue that on top. That looks about right, doesn't it? And then that bit that I saved for before will go in there on the other side of that crenellation. And that crenellation obviously will still have its top on it. Not bad. So instead of using an outline of card to make the base of the roof, I just decided to use a stack of 3 pieces of card. So that is the base of the roof, and that will go into there like that, and then the roof will be built on top. So let's have a look. This is my first attempt at the pieces for the roof. Now, sometimes I get these right first time, sometimes I make a silly mistake. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all of these onto 1mm card, these ones onto 0.5mm card, and this just I'm going to leave on paper as a helpful gluing guide. So let's see how that goes. I think that's worked quite well in the end. Doing the base like this made it a lot easier. I did miscalculate the end here and had to rip it off, but that'll be okay. So back to my tiles. I've finished adding the strips to the piece like this. Essentially I just cut the pieces out and then put strips of tiles on top, and then I can just trim them off. To trim them off, I simply put the steel rule down the edge of the already cut piece of card and then just trim off the bits of strip of tiles. The advantage of doing it like this on thin card and then adding it to the model means that it goes on really neatly, and after colouring the edges in with watercolour pencil it'll join together very nice. So I think I'm on the right lines here. I do like when I've put the first bit on to have a nice look down. Does it look right? I think it does. It's going to look fantastic. I work my way around putting piece after piece on, and then it's time for the last piece. It just sits onto a bed of PVA and squishes down nicely. Thankfully the measurements are all correct. It fits the side of the tower just right, and it lines up with the front of the other pieces that I've already put on. We'll put the ridging tiles on next, and then I think the roof will be finished. I was deciding whether or not to put a little lip on these plinths that come out the bottom. I had decided not to, but then I was looking, when it's lit from above, it makes almost the plinth disappear completely. So I wanted something to give it a tiny little shadow. So I've put on, it's very difficult to see, I've put on the tiniest sliver of card just along the top. And what I did was I just cut it out by hand. It's about, I don't know, 0.75 mm thick, wide, I would guess, out of 0.5mm card. So I'm just going to carefully glue this all the way around. It's going to be interesting going around the buttress, but let's see where we get to. I hope I haven't made a mistake. This is perhaps some of the most subtle work I've ever done, and it's very time consuming, but as far as I can see so far, it is very, very effective. So I'm trying to get this tiny sliver of card offered up to the model like this, and there, just drop straight onto place like that. Now it's just a case of ever so gently smoothing it down. It's very, very fiddly, very small, but I think that looks alright. Once that's varnished, I don't even think it'll need any additional treatment. Cool. It doesn't need to be done on the bottom one, because if you remember when we did that video, these are already 2 layers with a slight lip built into them. There are a few gaps between the card. I don't know whether to fill those in or not yet. Maybe that's a if I have time thing, but look at the difference it's made. I think it's really made a subtle and effective difference. If we come round to where I haven't done it, you know, there's not a huge difference, but I think it works. And that is the north wing done, I think. All of what you've just seen was last weekend, and since then I've done even more. So the north wing is finished, and if we look, the north aisle is also finished. Look at that, doesn't that look fantastic? If you were watching along in the big push, you'll have seen where I ended that with. You'll have seen the string courses are in place, we've now got the sills on the windows, the crenellations are finished, the gutter and its supports are in place, and the plinths along the bottom have a lip similar to what I just showed, and of course the roof is in place. I've even started work on finishing off the north transept. You'll see that the roof is in, the roof is test fitting and it's looking good. And I've also made a start on the windows. So these are the stone tracery for the 4 windows in the transept there and there. So it's moving on apace. I think I shared with my channel members last week that it isn't going to get finished for its update appearance at the cathedral itself on the 13th of September, but my goodness, it almost is. The north side is going to be done. So I'm going to finish off the transept and then get the groundwork in place. So you can see, if you remember, the ground goes from quite low around the front up to quite high at the back. So if I can get this ground in, along with its pavements and its slabs and its walls and its hedges and its grass, I think it's going to look fantastic. So come back next time. Thank you for watching this video. The next video I'll show you all about what I've done with the north aisle, including sorting out and finishing the pesky little crenellations, which was an interesting challenge by far. Alright, thank you for watching this episode. Take care, and I'll see you then.